was like days after he passed away. And there was like a collection box for his family. And I was like, I'd heard like earlier in the day, I think, because I was like really hyped. I'd go, I'm going to go and see Stevie Hyper. And a friend of mine was like, no, he died. And I was like, nah, there's no way he died. That's ridiculous. Like, what are you talking about? No, he genuinely, he died. And I was like, that can't be real. And then I got to the rave and then there was like a collection box for his family. And so we met up and we had this like 4-hour long meeting and I was like, oh my God, this is it. This is my calling. I've got to make this film. And initially it was going to be a short film. And then it ended up kind of just growing and it kind of grew out of naivety. We didn't really know what we were doing. We thought we could make a feature.
Oh, so you're like learning along the way, realizing how much, because obviously as a documentary, you have to do the research and then realizing how much content you actually have. It's like, there's no way we can make a short film on this and do it justice. I'm assuming that's the conversation that happened.
I don't know if you guys saw, like when it was all going viral last year, there was this clip from the cinema, one of the cinemas in the UK. We got the Kent crew. It went viral because basically when the credits rolled, Logan D's tune, which is called Jungle Music, it's got a Stevie Hyper vocal played on it. People were like raving in the cinema, which is nuts. It's actually nuts. This video went proper viral.
It's probably going to happen tomorrow too.
And lighters, the lighter crew, the lighter crew. In the theater. Hey guys, welcome back to the Back and Body Hurts podcast where we dive into all things EDM. Thanks for tuning in to this week. I'm your host for this week, Sunny, and to my right is Ekern.
Hey.
So earlier this year, we dropped a BnB special episode featuring Stranja and Cito. We have a video link in case you haven't watched it. And also it'll be in the description where we deep dove into all things drum and bass, highlighting our Toronto scene and its deep root in drum and bass. But today we're back for a little special episode dedicated to one of the most important documentaries in jungle music history, Hyper, the Stevie Hyper D Documentary. So this film, released last year, has been receiving phenomenal feedback, shining a spotlight to the culture, inspirations, and legacy of one of the most revered MCs to ever touch a mic. Stevie Hyper D wasn't just a pioneer, he paved the way for countless MCs and became a true idol to many of the legends we see on today's stage. The film is currently on a limited release tour around the world after doing a UK tour initially. It is set to premiere in Toronto as of this recording tomorrow.
Yep, tomorrow.
Tickets are sold out. So it's a testament to the love the Toronto jungle community has shown, especially for this movie. And I believe it's the biggest premiere of the entire world tour, which is amazing.
It is, yeah.
For the junglist community, like the history has been amazing here. So it's great to see. So joining us today to talk about the film and the legacy of Stevie Hyper D is the director himself, Jamie.
Thank you.
Welcome to the podcast, Jamie.
Thank you for having me.
So this is your
welcome to Toronto, actually.
And yes, welcome to Toronto.
This is my first time in Toronto, although I've been to Canada a lot and also lived on the West Coast as well. So it's a real honor to be in Toronto.
Yeah, and you as we mentioned, you probably know about the drum and bass legacy while making the film.
Absolutely.
And our history is very deep. So we're honored to have you in Toronto for the premiere.
Thank you.
So what's the initial feedback for the Toronto stop and the hype around it?
Well, I had to come really because the hype was pretty nuts. I mean, basically we, the cinema we're in, we were just talking about Yonge and Dundas is, I guess, as you were saying, at the equivalent of Times Square in Toronto, which is pretty wild. And we actually sold out the first screening, I think within like 2 days. So they upgraded us to like the biggest screen, I think, which is like 300 capacity. Wow. Which is pretty crazy. And it's the biggest screening we've done since the premiere, basically in London, which was 300 capacity. And that was in November last year. So we've screened it. I think we've done about 200 screenings of the film.
Yeah.
In various locations.
That's crazy.
So it's pretty wild. And I was always sort of planning to come to New York when we were sort of planning the world tour when it got announced. And I was like, wow, New York, Toronto, they're really close. I should really go. And and here I am, basically. So
the New York stop was announced after the initial poster, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
It was just trying to work out the details, trying to get it to work.
Yeah, we were just trying to work out logistics. And it was always kind of a dream to. I mean, this whole thing is very much a surreal experience. premiering your, first film. It's my first feature film. I've made short films. I work as a producer for a living, but my first feature film is kind of like a bit crazy to premiere it in New York, the North American premiere, and then same thing in Toronto. We did it all over the UK, which was also equally surreal. But to come to North America and do the same thing in North America is a little bit of a pinchy kind of moment, So.
Yeah, and we'll get more into the film too, because I know it's been many years of work and many years of putting it together.
Much to my sins,
But you talked about producing, so I guess what's your introduction to the scene, like the drum and bass scene?
So I've been involved in jungle drum and bass since the sort of the very, very early days. 97. I was first given a telepathy tape back in the day in London. Tape sort of packs and tape sets were like a really big thing. And pirate radio obviously was a huge thing.
Oh yeah.
So I was given a telepathy tape, which was the rave telepathy, and it was a Nicky Black Market tape and a Stevie Hyper D tape. And I was a hip hop kid at the time, and it was 97, so it's kind of coming off the back of like Wu-Tang, Nas, Naughty by Nature, and throughout the sort of the era when jungle was like popping from sort of 94 to 96, I guess. Or maybe a little bit earlier, I was like really young. I was like, I don't really listen to this. I listened to like hip hop, basically. That was like my thing. But then when I was given this tape, I was like a drum and bass kid, like overnight, pretty much. Yeah. And it was a Stevie Hyper D tape.
Because the influence comes from reggae.
Yeah.
Right? So like that's like if you have the hip hop roots, especially in UK culture where it's deep in its root, then the transition to jungles was just amazing.
Yeah. And particularly with drum and bass, particularly at that time, and particularly that tape, the samples were all like, it kind of moved away. It sort of moved slightly out of the reggae and the ragga kind of influence style, and it kind of moved into like more sampling, like Nas records, for instance, or big KRS records. And I could immediately sort of hear the hip hop influence kind of coming through, and Stevie's style as an MC was a blend between sort of hip hop, ragga, and then its own, like specifically its own thing. But that was like my gateway basically into it. And then kind of coincidentally at the same time, Ronnie Size was like the sort of mainstream equivalent of that with Brown Paper Bag and all of those tunes. And so I was kind of like immediately like captivated by this music, and then spent many years doing things within the world. I used to MC myself, hence the reason I've made the film about the MC. And then also promoting parties, and that kind of led me into event production and various other things. But it all kind of stems back to that one tape, which was the Nicky Black Market and Stevie Hyper D tape.
Nice.
I wasn't even born yet.
I
love it, man.
That shows my age, you know?
Yeah, I was 5, so I
love it.
But okay, so then the origins of the movie, right? Like, I guess for our audience, like, we'll get into why Stevie Hyper D was such a legend in the scene. But for you, was it always going to be Stevie Hyper D as when you wanted to do this movie? Was there?
Well, originally I started making films and content because I had a blog, I had a website at the time, and I was writing. I was doing a lot of music journalism alongside my day-to-day job, which is event production. And the website and the idea kind of behind the website and the blog, it was very much the blog era. So this is like 2012, 2013, was about how music is like all interconnected together. I guess kind of before wasn't quite exactly before the term EDM was coined, but very much in and around the era where EDM was kind of coined, and that was like the sort of the how do you say, the blanket kind of term for dance music. So I was always really like a hip hop kid originally, and then kind of got into dance music and jungle, drum and bass, house and garage kind of later. So the idea about the website was showing about how music and the music history was all connected together. And so I started my sort of journey as a writer, I suppose, kind of like first and foremost. And then I made a short film on another MC from the UK, Navigator. He's also a legend in his own right. It's on Radio 1 in the jungle. And has played in Toronto with Marcus and various other people a lot. And then off the back of that, Daryl saw that short film and was like, do you want to make one of my uncle? And I was like, sure. And that was like the first kind of venture into filmmaking I'd done. and that was like really was the beginning of the journey, and that was in 2012. And then it kind of took a long time.
It took a long time.
I did do other stuff in between, but yeah, it took a long time.
Yeah, it's never as easy as you hoped it would be, right?
Never.
But here we are now, right?
Here we are,
doing the biggest premiere of the entire tour.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is
it's crazy.
Amazing to hear.
It's crazy.
So I guess we'll get into more about Stevie Hyper D. But what's one thing, I guess, for the audience early that you would want after making the movie that you would want people to know about him?
I think the main thing you want to know is obviously, on a basic level, Daryl, who I made the film with, who's Stevie's nephew, we really primarily wanted to show how influential this guy was. And the original title for the film was called The Hidden Influence, because he was kind of like hidden from the limelight for quite a considerable period of time. You would only really like know about him if you were sort of there in that era with the tape packs.
It's kind of how
the pirate radio.
It's kind of how I guess the scene was back then, because raves weren't common. I mean, you didn't have the internet, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
The only way especially in the drum and bass world, when we talk to Stranger, is you go to your local record shop and you see what dub plates are there. You see what the next rave is right there, and you connect with other DJs. So I'm assuming it's like the scene knew, but like the worldwide, the general people who may have listened to drum and bass or jungle didn't know.
Exactly. And there was also this other sort of lineage which kind of came off of him from an emceeing point of view, and obviously particularly with like what happened with grime after that. And these guys became like Dizzy and Wiley, and everybody became the biggest stars in the country at one point. They were absolutely massive. And there's a direct lineage from Stevie Hyper right through to all of those MCs and everything else that basically kind of like carried on after. But then there's also another lineage of like producers, DJs, events people that kind of surrounded it, that also kind of we felt needed to be told and show how influential this guy was. So that was like the first thing, and that was really what we wanted primarily people to take away. But then as we were making the film, it kind of became something else. It became a story about a person, and actually I think that's what's made the film sort of transcend in the UK, particularly, to get reviews like the reviews we were getting in The Guardian and all this crazy stuff and all this like mainstream media coverage, I think was because we ended up making a film that was about people.
You captured the essence of what drum and bass is to the UK people, right?
Yeah.
Like that, I think that's what the takeaway was from a lot of the reviews I did, is that you captured the essence of what Stevie D meant to the people, and also how he reflected what UK culture was.
100%. But also on an even more basic level, what family means, and like what individuals mean within the family, and the story of a person within a family that's like a literal family, i.e. the family that he grew up in, but then also as well like a family of like jungle drum and bass and that culture.
Family,
yeah, exactly.
Did you get a chance to see him live?
I didn't. That was also like part of the reason why I made the film in the first place, was because on a very basic level, really at the time when Daryl approached me, I was like, where's the video footage? There was hardly any video footage. And I said to Daryl on our first meeting, I said, where's the video footage? And he's like, I've got 1 or 2 tapes. And I was like, well, it must exist out there somewhere. So on a very basic nerdy level, all I wanted to do was just find the video footage. Eventually we did find it, and we found it. And it's like, a mountain of it, basically.
And the coolest thing that I think that we saw was that one of the most, I guess, iconic videos was actually in Toronto when he did it for, I think, Electric Circus. I think that's what it was called.
Yeah.
And it was we used to have Much Music, which was like our radio, and they used to have a drum and bass section. But then when you go back to the archives, you're like, wow. Like I think even in that interview, he just mentioned how passionate the Toronto drum, like it's like UK crowd, is what he felt. It felt at home for that crowd.
Yeah,
so like
absolutely.
Seeing those tapes just come out for our scene, like us, it's just as a shout out to our Toronto jungle community.
Yeah, big up Marcus. And actually this guy Clint actually found this footage, and I think it was around about the time that we'd taken over the management of this Facebook page, and luckily for us, when we took it over, it had like 32,000 fans on it, and many were from here as well. And I think I posted on the page, I said, anybody got any footage? And Clint, big him up, E-Town Junglist, I think is his pseudonym. He came up and he was like, I think I've got this footage. It's on a VHS somewhere of Stevie on Much Music. I was like, no way. And eventually
we're going that far back. We're going to VHS, guys.
Yeah. And he did.
We're before DVDs.
He converted it for me and sent it to me. And I was like, no way. It's like the most mind-blowing thing. And that was actually, I think we were finishing the film, like the production of the film, about to go into the edit of it. And it actually formed like a key part of I won't give it away for the viewers that haven't seen it yet, but it kind of forms a key part of the narrative of the film, basically, as well. So
nice.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Toronto was a pinnacle.
Definitely in North America, for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's still pretty strong too, our drum and bass scene. And like the same players, like Destiny, the same players. We got Play the Records, which many traveling artists always visit. One of the big ones, El Hornet from Pendulum. Anytime he comes here, he does a story based on what he can find at Play the Records. So shout out to them. Just moving back, so I know Stevie was like, I guess one of the pioneers of being an MC for like the jungle scene. But I guess when jungle started, obviously we talked about earlier, it was taken from like more of the reggae side, the UK culture based on that. Do you have any like background? You mentioned 94, 95, and then at that time, I think that's when Stevie kind of came in with doing MCing. Was he like the first to kind of pave the way for a lot of people, or were there others?
Yeah, most definitely. There was a few kind of just before him. Big up the Ragga Twins, Navigator, Moose, 50 Det. They were kind of like the original in London on Cool FM. They were called like the A Team. They were like the first like real kind of MCs. Stevie was around at that same time, but he didn't really pop off until like 95, really. Again, which is slightly before my time. But in answer to your original question, the sort of the jungle sound, I guess, is kind of like an amalgamation of like hip hop breaks or funk breaks sped up. The Amen break particularly is obviously the main one, which is a funk break, originally mixed with sub bass, so like reggae sub bass and dub. And then sound system culture in general is like a huge part of what makes jungle, which is the MCs or the DJs as they were known back then. Navigator and the Ragga Twins were originally they were like three of the main sound system MCs or DJs, like from the 80s, basically. They were on a sound called Unity, which was one of the biggest sounds basically in London, alongside Saxon, which was one of the other big sounds. And that whole kind of UK sound system culture was like a huge influence in terms of like how the aesthetic of the music was kind of pulled together. So the MCs would host DJs, and there was like many things that were kind of brought into it, like the rewind and like MCing in general and toasting over the music, as well as like reggae or ragga style vocals that kind of like led over the top. But latterly, I suppose, in the sort of the tail end of jungle into drum and bass, which was, I guess, 95 into 96, it became more hip hop focused. As sort of the reggae vocals kind of came out of it. Many say that they were pushed out of it, which is another conversation which I don't think I'm entitled to maybe talk about. I think I'd leave that to my friends back in London. But there was conversations about how the sort of the reggae and the ragga element got pushed out of it, and then certainly the kind of the hip hop sort of influence kind of came into it, which is when I talking about that Telepathy tape was a 96 tape,
so
which
that's
is kind of the first era of sort of drum and bass.
So basically. I guess that's the transition of why Stevie was, I guess, such a icon to a lot, because when the hip hop influence came in, he was at the forefront for all that entire movement.
Yeah, I think he what is interesting about him is that even though he had like the ragga sort of influence and the patois kind of influence sort of style, he had his own thing which was very unique that fitted that era of jungle drum and bass into drum and bass, which is like 95 into 96 very, very well, because previously the sort of style of MCing was like, 8 or 16 bar lyrics in between the sort of the ragga vocals, and it was much more hosting or toasting as it was known back then. Whereas Stevie was one of the first, like really lyrical MCs who would come on, and it was like his lyrics were structured, because by that time there was less lyrics in the tunes.
Mm-hmm.
So he would come on and he would like drop like a hook, a verse, a hook, and a verse, basically. And which was kind of unheard of. You have like call and response lyrics that the crowd would basically shout back. And he was unique and original in the sense that he was one of the first to sort of be super lyrical, and it became about him as an artist, not just as an MC hosting a DJ. So he became as popular as the DJs of the time.
Was he
in
the
the
one
UK.
who also round out the crowd to sing along with him?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you see that sometimes nowadays. Not as much. We'll get into like the current scene right now, because like you've probably heard in NA, they don't really like their MCs that much. Oh, not in the jungle scene. Jungle scene they do, but like
Yeah.
a lot of the NA dance floor, they don't like if a Wilkinson or a Subfocus plays in North America, they don't have an MC. But when they play in UK, there's always an MC.
Yeah.
It's part of the
Yeah.
culture that it's expected to have an MC there.
Yeah.
But in North America, they don't do it because I guess just
And
the
the modern generation, I guess.
modern
yeah.
generation, it takes away from the music. I know that's one of the complaints we hear a lot of
Mhm.
times. But I know in the jungle scene here, you must have an MC, or else it's not what jungle is.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point, and I think could probably do a whole podcast
Oh,
on
we
this.
could do a whole
Yeah,
podcast.
But I think primarily, actually we're talking about this in New York actually the other day on the Q&A on the panel, and I think a lot of it, certainly in the US part of North America, I think is because, and certainly in New York, is like MC culture in New York is like, when you talk about MCs in New York, you're talking about like Nas, Jay-Z,
Mhm.
Big Pun, Big L, Wu-Tang Clan. It's like a totally different thing. Our thing is blended in and amongst hip hop thing, UK rap, drill, grime, jungle, drum and bass, garage, sound system culture. It's all like a big melting pot, which isn't necessarily always focused about making tunes. Making of the tunes comes with the likes of Dizzy and Wiley and the whole grime generation later. But Stevie's vision was to basically put everything on wax, which is what Marcus was talking about the other day in an interview. But I think with like drum and bass particularly, and the way that the music has gone, it's become very EDM focused, and much, certainly within the EDC world, it kind of fits and sits differently. Like the focus is much more on the DJ or the producer or dimension or sub focuses. And even Andy C usually plays with Tom Piper. So I've seen him do shows recently without Tom Piper.
Yeah, I was actually I was very curious. I'm like, what? Oh, did they have a split? No, because I always said I can't see an Andy C set without Tom Piper.
Yeah,
it's like the only DJ like for the modern generation that I'm like, it works. Like Tom Piper and him are so in sync that it works. But Andy C set without Tom Piper is still pretty good.
Yeah, of course, and similar thing with Chasing Status as well.
Yes,
they work with Takura, and used to work with Rage, and you never see them without one of those guys on the set, and certainly with sets I've seen them do, EDC and various elsewhere, Brownies and Lemonade, I think as well. They've been doing it without an MC as well.
And I guess Chasing Status is at the front, like for North America. When a Chasing Status show, like drum and bass, certain artists like right now Dimension, they can sell out like a warehouse. Chasing Status right now can sell out quite a bit. Yeah. And I know with their tunes, obviously they have like legendary tunes like Program and all that stuff. But like they can, like Stormzy, for example, collabing with Chasing Status, just pulling the scene in a different direction, right? Expanding it.
Yeah, totally. So I think it's partly, the location, the way that the music's gone, how the music is framed, I think is also a big thing. And partly trend as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes, even in the UK, it was like that for a while. There was a show actually, big up Bass Layers, Spider and Blue Bomber, and they did a show the other day in Bristol, like Mike Mania, which was like an MC focused night. And you can sort of see with the trend, it's kind of coming back in coming back into trend, and MC culture in the UK, particularly with drum and bass and jungle, has always just been it's like the core part of it. And it's hard, I think that's what's important about this film in a lot of ways. It's like it's showing that, you know, it is a core part of it. And there's also another thing as well as the other thing that I would argue is there's a smaller talent pool when it comes to MCs, like really compared to other genres in the UK. Like a lot of the UK MCing really kind of lives within grime, probably more than anything. Like, because even in garage, which was a big part of it, it's less focused as well.
So I want to talk about the UK like culture in general. Obviously, most of our audience is from North America, but like in the transition from like the raga style to more the hip hop, was the UK culture always present between both of them from your experience? Like, how did Stevie particular emphasize the UK culture in his versing?
I think, how did Stevie sort of live within that UK culture? I think like he was like integral to it, and I think the sort of whilst the genre or the genres, as it were, sort of jungle into drum and bass, as it were, are kind of sort of UK genres. They are. There's no doubt about it. London specifically at that time, it was the influence from, say, reggae into hip hop, but it was that they're still very much like UK owned genres at that time, and albeit definitely like playing in cities like Toronto and stuff, but the hub at that time was London, probably more than Bristol, even though Bristol's
the hub.
Yeah,
at least right now.
Certainly now, certainly now, 100%. There's no doubt about it. But at the time,
do you know why?
Well, I think it's the history of like Ronnie Size, Full Cycle, Crust, Die, all of those guys.
Okay.
And also as well, it has a long-standing history with sort of its own version of sound system culture. Massive Attack were also from Bristol. Tricky as well. The whole trip hop sound comes from Bristol as well. It is an amazing city. Big up the Bristol crew. Big up the Bristol crew.
I've wanted to go.
Bristol's the one. Bristol's the one. And I'm
like
a Londoner.
on bucket list to see a show in Bristol, because you just know the whole town, like they just love drum and bass. Doesn't matter you're young, old, everyone loves drum and bass.
Like it is in the water.
Yeah.
Like it's that. I'm a Londoner, and I can say that Bristol is like the home of drum and bass in the world right now.
Undisputed.
And we actually did a screening like the week after. It was like the second run of screenings we did, and we purposely went down to Bristol to do it. Crust was in attendance and a few other people. In fact, I say a few other people. Most of Bornham Road were basically in this in this screening.
Wow.
And it was just incredible. So like the Bristol just turned out. I think the screening sold out in like a couple of days or something.
How many shows did you do in Bristol?
I think we did like 2 or 3 shows in Bristol, but we did a lot of screenings around.
How many total in the UK did you guys do?
We did. I think we did 100. How many screenings did we do? I think we did 60 cinemas around the UK in the first run, and then I think we did 40 on the second run. But then a total of like, I think on the first screening they were doubled up in most of the cinemas. We must have done about. I think we've done in the UK. We've done close to 200 screenings. I think basically, which is pretty wild. But that
goes back to the passion, right? I guess that goes back to the testament of the film is that it embraces the UK culture, which resonates with people. It's just like if a Canadian, for example, if a Canadian made movie resonates with like us and how our upbringing, then obviously all Canadians are going to flock to it. So it's just great to see. It's a fantastic job.
I
mean, the Torontonians are flocking to this.
It's crazy
tomorrow, right?
It's crazy. It's crazy. But back to your question about Stevie and how he sort of fitted within that. I think at the time, it's like I said, he was a star, like without even knowing what he looked like. It's like his voice was the voice of London, specifically for a period of time, and then Skibbity, big up Skibber, R.I.P. Skibber. He kind of took that mantle after. And this was like before UK garage and grime, before it really blew up, really. And like it was everywhere, like, you know, on tapes, on radio, on people's cars, in the raves. He was like an underground superstar. And that was from tapes, that was from pirate radio, that was from rave culture. And people just exchanging tapes, a lot of stealing of tapes had many tapes stolen, and
Yeah.
you know, so
Mhm.
it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the internet, I guess.
And that's crazy how the popularity is just through that, like the tapes.
Yeah, it was
right?
wild,
It's
man.
it's
It's wild.
it's just like
It's wild.
this generation. All of a sudden, you just go on social media and then you know it's popular, right?
Yeah,
It's completely different. And I wanted to I'll ask that question later of like, if Stevie was still around today, like how would have the internet and all that affected him? That's something we'll talk about in a bit. So I guess from making the movie and talking to like current MCs, what's the impression they have of Stevie? Like how's it formed their careers or the influences they've had?
I can only really talk from the people that we had in the film, which are
Mhm.
kind of also equally, you know, legends in their own right, and those people have kind of gone on to inspire. And then if you look at the lineage and the kind of how that's all kind of like interconnected together, these people are like massive legends in their own right. So, for instance, like Heartless Crew, the big like garage collective in the 90s into the 2000s, So Solid Crew, Mega Man is kind of seen as not just one of the founding sort of people or MCs of that crew and of UK garage, but also as well they had one of the earliest UK rap albums as well. They all kind of unanimously say that this was the guy at that particular like period of time. And I think from an MCing point of view, there's and why I'm, you know, so proud of the film in many ways from a cultural point of view, and so certainly from a musical point of view, we really did prove like how influential this person was, and that was originally the goal of making the film. And when we were making the film, we kind of realized pretty early on we've got this in the bag, probably in, which is ironic, probably within the first like 3 minutes of the film, in the intro and the extended intro, when you guys see it, you'd be like, oh yeah, you can see straight out of the gate. And then we realized, well, we've made this feature, or we're in the cutting this feature, and we're like, I don't think we should keep repeating ourselves. I think we've kind of made the point of how influential he is. And then it was kind of like a case of like, how do we tell a story that's sort of bigger and broader? But people did unanimously say that this is the guy that kind of like, he's like the bridge between sound system culture, sort of UK rap and hip hop, through into rave culture in general, not just drum and bass and jungle, but he was a hardcore MC beforehand, and then, or should I say simultaneously, and then kind of bridged through into jungle, drum and bass. But he was also MCing on house in like the 80s as well, which is kind of sort of original in itself. Like, whereas a lot of MCs would just be a jungle MC or come from the sound system culture, which is very purely reggae, then into jungle.
I'm trying to think if old techno had MCs. I don't think it did.
No.
I don't think it made its way there. I think it just did house. And
well, he actually did a couple of sets. Daryl would talk better on this, but he did a couple of sets, big techno sets back in the day when those techno DJs would come over to the UK, and he would
try it.
Yeah,
he would try it.
Yeah, he'd try it.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I think it's a Lenny D set. I think it is.
Once again, it all goes back to the tapes. You have to uncover the VHS.
That's it.
And then see if someone uploaded on YouTube or anything.
Yeah,
it's just amazing. I think that also comes back to why, like, I think when you go back through the tapes, you see Stevie everywhere, which is like obviously we have the internet now, but like going back to the tapes, who's the guy who keeps coming up? Stevie. This guy who keeps coming up, right? Which is why I think for those guys, especially when they're young and they're looking up, well, they have Stevie at that time, right?
That's it. And I think the influence, you know, if you take, say, Heartless as an example, they went on to inspire like Skepta and Kano, who are two. I mean, I'd argue that Skepta's like probably, in terms of longevity and reach, is probably, you know, one of the biggest, if not the biggest UK MC ever. And similar with Kano as well. You know, Kano was inspired by Heartless, and then So Solid pretty much inspired everybody in London, from like gigs through to Dizzy and everybody pretty much, really.
Was this was post his passing, or during his time?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, because they all kind of kids in those times, and then kind of picked up the mantle in their respective scenes, primarily garage, I guess.
Did he had any competitors?
Yeah, I guess like in the main competitor was also kind of like a sort of somebody that he was helping, I guess, along the way was Skibbity, basically, who was huge in Toronto, like huge, absolute superstar in his own right as well. I guess he was his sort of main number two, I guess, at that time, and then Shabba as well, who is still around now as well. And Skibber and Shabba and Shotter and Storming had this thing SSS, which was huge just before Skibber passed. It was massive. They were like doing big shows all over the world in New Zealand and stuff as well. But yeah, he was, I guess, they were the sort of the main two. And then he kind of came in, Stevie came into the era before that, which was like Det, Fearless, Ragga Twins, Navigator, Moose, 5 and those. But he was kind of the second generation of it, basically.
And just to transition to that, unfortunately, Stevie passed away at the young age of 31 from a heart attack. And I guess we'll just move on to like, I know when you were doing the documentary, you probably uncovered his touring schedule. How intense was his schedule and like, I guess the party life? I guess it must have been at that time, it's underground. So every time you go out, it is a party.
It was pretty wild. I think like at one point, the year that he passed in July 98, I think he'd come to Toronto in and amongst doing like a tour of the Far East, including like Asia and Australia. Don't think he got to New Zealand, but he was on and off planes like at that time. And this is like before, people advising you if you're traveling a lot, you should be sort of looking after yourself in terms of deep vein thrombosis, let alone other,
Eating right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, partying right.
Sleeping.
I mean, mental health wasn't even really talked about. It's like
it wasn't.
It's a thing in those days.
You didn't really have any resources, right, at that time either.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. So I think it's like a compounding thing in many ways. It's a different era.
Was it like every weekend, like 3 days in a row?
Yeah, I think at his peak he was playing. I think he was playing like 3 to 4 shows a week, in multiple different places all over the UK and all over the world towards the end. Certainly, that's how I never got to see him, because first rave I went to, he was on tour. He was on the sort of famous tour just before he passed away, and then the second rave I went to, he passed away like 5 days before or something. Which is pretty crazy. And it's kind of even sort of crazy now when you kind of think, that, nearly 30 years later, we're sort of talking about somebody that was super influential for like 3 years. It's kind of the same sort of period that Biggie was kind of.
Yeah, it's exactly that scenario.
94 to 97, right?
Came in, left his mark, and left a lasting legacy for the whole upcoming generation of MCs and artists too, which is it just goes back to so like mental health, like there was no resources, right? So you're just going from one party to the next, jet lag, tired,
totally,
obviously drinking, obviously just everything the scene
has to offer.
Yeah, totally.
So it's
totally,
it's tough. I guess through the movie, the reflection, like with his passing, like I guess he accomplished so much in a short time span, but what was the feedback of like I guess when the passing happened in the scene, like when
that was the most surreal thing for me, because I was really young at the time. I was 16 at the time, and I was only just starting to go to raves. So I was going to under 18s raves and had the tapes and listened to pirate radio and stuff. But I was only like just able to sneak my way into adult raves. And as I say, the first rave I went to was a Desire, and the second rave, I went to was in a Desire in July 98. It was like days after he passed away. And there was like a collection box for his family. And I was like, I'd heard like earlier in the day, I think, because I was like really hyped. I'm going to go and see Stevie Hyper. And a friend of mine was like, no, he died. And I was like, nah, there's no way he died. That's ridiculous. Like, what are you talking about? No, he genuinely, he died. And I was like, that can't be real. And then I got to the rave, and then there was like a collection box for his family. And
Hey everyone, thanks for listening. Real quick, if you're planning on attending any events overseas, you need to sort out your mobile data before you go. No one wants to be that person hunting for dodgy Wi-Fi just to load their ticket or find their friends at 2 a.m. Use Airalo. It's an app that lets you instantly download eSIMs for basically any country. It's super easy. Pick your destination, buy a plan, and boom, you've got data as soon as you land. It's way cheaper than roaming, and you'll be set for maps, messaging, all the fest photos, no stress. Best part? You can get 15% off with our code BnB Hertz 15. Just head to airalo.com or grab the app and enter the code at checkout.
Family. And I was like, this is really bizarre.
From a heart attack too at age 31, which is
savage, man.
That is
absolutely savage. And so that was the sort of most bizarre thing. So for like 6 months, maybe longer, maybe a year after he passed, every rave there would be like a minute silence for him. And it was like you could feel that there was this energy missing. And being like a fan of the music and Skibber and Shabba and the music in general and the culture, and they were amazing as well. They were really young at the time. I think Skibber and Shabba were like early 20s. They were really incredible in those era, but everybody who I knew that had heard Stevie was like, you think they're incredible. Like if you'd seen Stevie Hyper, it's like another level to it. And I was like, how can it be another level? I couldn't really, because there was no video footage, and you'd sort of look for footage and nobody would have anything. And it's just before the dawn of the internet. And still, like, even up until meeting Daryl, there was like 4 or 5 things on YouTube, and then like multiple views and stuff. But yeah, it was like really hard to get your hands on the footage, basically. So
it's one of those you had to be there kind of moments.
You had to be there.
You
had to be there. And hopefully with this film, it kind of, that alleviates some of that, I think. And certainly from the feedback, there's certain sequences, again, I won't give it away. But there's certain sequences in the film which Doug's actually said, Uncle Doug's is a good friend of ours, and the idea for the film was actually born on his Rinse show. But he said on an interview the other day that there's a sequence in the film it's like you're there, basically.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think that's, as a documentary, I think that's what you want. That's the best takeaway you can have from the documentary.
Totally.
You did a great job.
Is
that you're there, you understand the legacy and what it means. Even if you're someone like Yikern who's just new into the scene, I think if you come away from that, then you just have more respect for the history.
Yeah, 100%.
Which is
great. 100%.
So transitioning to the movie, congratulations on the Toronto stop.
Thank you. Thank you.
We mentioned it earlier, and we talked about it, I think, before, that it's probably the biggest showing.
It's the biggest showing. And thank you for kind words at the beginning as well. That's a pretty good intro. I was pleased with your intro. so thank you.
No.
This is as I say, this is the biggest screening we've done outside of the London premiere, which was in Tottenham Court Road in London, in Odeon. And this is in Cineplex, which I guess is the equivalent of like Odeon.
Yeah, it is.
It's pretty wild. I mean, again, like, there's nothing but gratitude for the experience, but I was I was thinking on the flight on the way here, I was like, why am I going to Toronto again? I was like, this is a bit weird. Why am I coming to Toronto? And then I was like, oh yeah, my film is showing, in one of the biggest cinemas in Toronto. I was like, it still is a bit surreal. It's a bit weird.
It's, being from Toronto, as I mentioned before, like I started listening to drum and bass in the 2000s, right? And I've been to a lot of shows here, and just the history, people don't realize how big of a history we have until you go back through the archives and you realize, or the jungle history we have here is even greater than like just the normal dance floor history, right? So even tomorrow, like I'm just already going to say, you're going to be so humbled by our Toronto crowd. Shout out to our Toronto junglist community.
Big up the Toronto junglists. Big up. Big
up to our local legends as well, Marcus and Stranger and them.
Yeah, big up the legends. Yeah, big up Stranger, Marcus. It's a really incredible thing. But yeah, I mean, I was saying earlier today that it's just, Toronto just has such a long history of jungle, and back in the day, like even in the 90s, in London, we were like, was sort of hear Fearless or whoever it was shout out the Toronto crew and stuff, and you'd be like, what? Why is this? How is this music even in Toronto? We couldn't even work out how it would have made its way to like Germany and Toronto. And when me and Daryl launched the film last year, we actually said at the premiere, we said, we're going to take this internationally. It was always in our mind to take it to Toronto and New York. But
it might have been a riot if you didn't come to Toronto. Or
because I was actually doing research. I was looking through the posts and comments. It's like, when is Toronto? When is Toronto? And it was like multiple comments on some of the posts. So I was like, wow.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's always humbling to hear, because you look at it, not just like any like interviews, when we talk about like the drum and bass scene in general, Toronto always gets that little mention at the end. You don't hear
legendary
much about the other cities, but you always hear that legends from the UK talking about Toronto because they traveled here back in the 90s or the 2000s, right?
Yeah.
So just also shout out to Toronto BnB Cypher. I think they were the ones helping host this as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, big up Brian.
Big up Brian for accommodating this and looking at the logistics. There's also, I mean, the recording of this will be out way after the premiere, but there's also an AP that after that, so after the movie screening. So
nice.
We hope to see everyone there.
Well, maybe you can cut to a round of applause. Like, hopefully.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So talking about the movie, the pre-production, because this was a long time coming from when we talked. So when did the initial conversation start happening for the movie? I think you mentioned like 2013.
So actually earlier.
Even earlier.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Daryl approached me in 2012.
2012.
And I was working on the Olympics at the time. My background is event production.
Oh, okay.
And I was working on the Olympics at the time. And I think we'd exchanged a few messages on Facebook, I think it was. And I kind of didn't put two and two together that he was family. And then anyway, I said, here's my number, call me, whatever. And then he called me when I was like on the D rig, I think for the Paralympics, wasn't he? And he's like, hi, I'm Daryl. I run this thing called Generation Hyper. And again, initially I thought, oh, he's running this thing on behalf of somebody who's associated with the family. He was like, oh, my uncle was Stevie Hyper D. And I was like, immediately, I was like, okay, I've got to go somewhere quiet.
Cover for me. Cover for me.
Ignore my D-rig on the Paralympic. And I was like, yeah. So tell me more. And he's like, yeah, look, I'd love for you to do something with my uncle. I've seen your Navi thing. And I was like, I'd love to talk, but I'm moving to Canada. So I was moving to Canada at the time and to the West Coast. And I said, let's meet up. I've got a really short window between coming back from the Paralympics and
flying to Canada.
So I said, I've got a day or something. Let's meet up. And so we met up and we had this like 4-hour long meeting, and I was like, oh my God, this is it. This is my calling. I've got to make this film. And initially it was going to be a short film, and then it ended up kind of just growing, and it kind of grew out of naivety. We didn't really know what we were doing. We thought we could make a feature, but we also thought we could make a longer short, like a 43-minute short. It was going to be a 3-parter. And then it just grew and grew and grew, and we just then inherited so much footage, and we didn't really know what we were doing. That's hence the reason we ended up making a feature film. I think if we knew what we were doing, I don't think it would have grown as big as it.
Oh, so like learning along the way, realizing how much, because obviously as a documentary, you have to do the research and then realizing how much content you actually have. It's like, there's no way we can make a short film on this and do it justice. I'm assuming that's the conversation that happened. But I got one question. So you did a Kickstarter, right? We did.
But
when was that?
That was this time last year.
Okay. So that was more recent. Okay.
Yeah. So that was in September last year. Big up Andrew, one of our exec producers of the project, in the building right now. So we launched that in September. No, actually we launched it in August last year. And the reason why we launched it just before the release, and I got to big up our distributor, Dartmouth Films, incredible distributor, independent film distributor. We had a finance gap basically of like about £35,000, which is crazy. And we had backup plans basically in place. And I said to Matt, who's our distributor from Dartmouth, I said, look, we've got this finance gap we need to close. It's for the licensing the music. And you can imagine with a feature film, there's a lot of music to clear. There's a lot of legal That was final post-production cost, grade, sound.
So this is already in the post-production, right?
Yes.
Like this is, okay.
We knew we had a very small amount of work to do, but it was really the legal side of it and the music side of it we needed to clear. And so Matt, who's from Dartmouth, incredibly supportive, was like, yeah, it's fine. We've done this before, but presumably you've got backup plans in place. And I was like, yeah, we've got, don't worry, it's all good. And we did genuinely have backup plans in place. But then as we going into the Kickstarter, that the backup plans like started falling away, and we were like, to be like, Matt, we haven't got any backup plans basically anymore. It's all on the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
But luckily, like we crossed the line of the Kickstarter like way above.
Yeah, like 10,000 more pounds.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Which is pretty wild.
Yeah.
Like then went straight into the release, and which is pretty unheard of for a feature doc. But not, I think Dartmouth had done it with other projects on a sort of a different scale. But what we did, we were going straight into like a big theatrical release basically with it, which was like wild. And for anybody that is making a film, is listening, do not do that. I would not recommend it for your stress levels.
Especially near the end when you already have everything.
It's not good. I mean, it got us over the line.
It did. You're here where you are today.
It got us over the line.
It's
really
just a stressful time.
It was like me and Daryl were like, at one point, just like, what are we doing? Should we just give up? Just run away somewhere, give up.
So I guess I jumped the gun with the Kickstarter because I wasn't sure the time frame of when you did it, but now it makes more sense talking about it because we didn't talk about this before. We just knew there was a Kickstarter, but it makes sense because you have all the footage, you have all the stuff, and now you need to clear all the legal.
Yeah, we'd actually made the film. The film was actually
that's
like,
what I mean.
The film was actually like 90 to 95% finished. It was, I'd say 95% finished. We just had to do the sound mix and then do the grade.
So going back to that process, so the conversation happened 2012, 2013. You moved to Canada for a bit. And then when did the conversation restart to like actually start like the production or the pre-production?
So we were developing it from when I came back, which was July 2013. We were developing it from July 2013 until February 2017 when we started shooting.
Okay.
And then we started shooting it February 2017 and shot it over the course of like 2.5 years. We kind of finished the bulk of the production in October 2019, went into the edit in January 2020, January/February 2020. And then the first part of the edit was done, see, in line with COVID. We were kind of,
and I'm assuming COVID had a big effect on,
like a positive effect for us.
Positive effect.
Yeah,
okay,
us,
because it kind of gave like allowed you to analyze what you've done type of thing.
Well, actually allowed us to like get on with the edit because we were doing this in talking about having 2 jobs, right? We were like juggling it around our work schedule. And then when the world shut down, we were actually in the edit anyway. And we just carried on basically.
Oh, so it was like the perfect timing.
Yeah, we just carried on. Carried on.
Lock
it's
yourself in a room.
It's like
exactly.
it's like the world is like, people can't go to the office. People may not have work. I'm still trucking away on this.
Yeah. So we just carried on. The editor, Rowan, big up Rowan, we were working with at the time. We just ended up just marching on with it.
I guess before the filming of the starting in 27, what was the most interesting research point that you found? Maybe not spoiling any part of the movie, but like something that you uncovered in like getting before you started filming. Was there anything like cool in that time frame that you discovered?
I think the as I sort of said, it comes back to the sort of primary reason of making the film was just to see how good he was, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And one of the first bits of footage I got, I remember going, I'm actually going to see him in his element, because the stuff that was online was really towards the end of his life. I think it was April 98. Might have been some stuff from that New Year's Eve, 97 into 98. There really wasn't much online. The first bit of video footage I got was from 95, which was when he was sort of coming into his prime, as it were. And I remember like looking at this footage and just going, this guy is like as good as they say he is. Mm-hmm. And that for me was like, oh my God, this guy's
it's like your intuition's like you hear it and then all of a sudden you see it and you're like, wow.
Which is really sort of unusual for like a kind of, a sort of a music film, is to sort of like be uncovering this stuff in real time, right? Mm-hmm. Kind of like, he's a folk tale. That was sort of part of the story, and the storytelling that we used was kind of like unearthing this kind of like folk tale like legend. And we were really genuinely unearthing it. I mean, Daryl was obviously there, but he was unearthing his own story. Like, he was unearthing the fact that he lost somebody that was really close to him. That was
It's like going through his family tree also,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
For
So
him, it's like personal.
So that was his uncle, but actually they were only 10 years apart, 9-10 years apart. So they were like brothers, basically. Yeah. And so for him, it was like unearthing the story. But for me, it was like, as a director, a filmmaker, and a fan of the music, I was kind of like unearthing this kind of this legacy, like in real time. And that was really powerful. And that was the beginning of it. And then we ended up with so much footage, I didn't really know what to do with it.
So when you started filming, I guess obviously you have guests in the film, but like, were people on board wanting to be a part of it, or how did that transition happen to figure out who wanted to be part of it?
The filmmaking part of it was because of what I do for a living. Obviously now I'm a filmmaker and director, and a producer. But at the time I was sort of primarily an event producer. And so what I do for a living, the organization and the pre-production and the production of organizing people and getting people together and coordinating a shoot, that was like, I wouldn't say easy by any means, but it was certainly within my comfort zone of like what I was doing. And also because I was really well connected in that world and I knew a lot of the people. And if I didn't know the people, either myself, Daryl, or Doug's, or somebody from our extended team, we'd be able to get to those people with relative ease. And because it was Stevie and he was such a legend, even before we kind of solidified that on film, people were really forthcoming. And big up everybody that's in the film, because everybody in the film was like really forthcoming.
Yeah.
The challenge came later in the edit. That was really when I was really out of my comfort zone.
And I think it comes back to the pride aspect too, is this like all these artists, DJs, MCs, when they know a project like this is being done, they know it's help promoting the scene that's like help them grow, right? So I know there's like a lot of people who would love to tag on and like share their 2 cents about like what it's done for them. So that's great. As I said, this is one thing I love about the drum and bass community is the unity is massive.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
You see it. You see it in the culture. You see it in the music. You see it in the artists. You see it in the people who go to the shows.
For sure. Cross-generation. Yeah, for sure. It's cross-generational. And I think that's also what makes it kind of unique, and is the soul of it, is that, I certainly as a kid, as a sort of 15, 16-year-old, you're not sort of expecting you're going to still be listening to Stevie Hyper taping, I don't know, whatever it is, like 30 years later.
That's the thing.
I mean?
The film is out there, and you could watch it 20 years from now, and hopefully that culture
hopefully
will still be there, right?
Hopefully that's the blessing of it.
And
that's what we made. We made it to be a timeless film as well.
And I listened to my first Stevie Hyper D song last night.
Nice.
So I mean, like it does change the generation. Like you said, right? So I mean, seeing it in person, because for me, I didn't really understand why drum and bass needed MCs. So when we did the Stranger episode, it kind of like show us the culture of like, Wheeler Bag trying to hype up the crowd. And then when I was doing research on this episode, and started watching some of the footage, and you can see like how influential some of these people do. Some of these ravers look up to him, and then slowly I kind of understand why it needed an MC, kind of thing. So who knows? Maybe like tomorrow, perspective might change, right?
I think it will.
That's all that needs to be said on that. It will change.
Exactly. It will change.
Yeah. Hopefully, I think you also get an insight into a time period. We kind of made it with the lens of like, we're making it for the heads, obviously, but I think why it's worked so well, and why I think it's kind of transcended, certainly like outside of the sort of the immediate world, is because we made it to be accessible. We didn't make it to be like, we're making a film just for the heads. We did have a version of the film we made, which was just for the heads. And then we were like, well, maybe we can make something bigger. And that was like a lot of the feedback that we got from our extended team. That like, actually, you've made something really good already, but you've potentially got something great here. And that's why we kind of pushed it to the absolute limits of our abilities and and everything as well. But we really did make it to be accessible to, you know, as wide an audience as possible. And I hope that with these screenings and, you know, particularly internationally, which is not just outside of the world, but outside of, you know, the place where it was born, I think is a testament to it.
Yeah. You obviously, while making the movie, you obviously drew inspiration from other documentaries. What's one that was like stood out for you as like a focal point?
Well, there's a few. There's the main one, the original one, because it's a music documentary and is arguably the greatest documentary ever made, is Searching for Sugar Man, which won the Oscar for Best Documentary Feature in 2013. And actually, I heard that. I saw that when I was living in Canada in 2012, 2013, and alongside I was listening to this radio documentary which was on Uncle Doug's show, which was actually feature length. It was a 90-minute long radio documentary. And I was listening to this radio documentary alongside watching this amazing music documentary, kind of both of them on repeat quite obsessively. And it was back in the day when Netflix had sort of just come online. And there was probably a few films, like literally a few films on Netflix. And Searching for Sugar Man was one of them. And I was like watching this on repeat. That was a huge influence. And then Senna, which is made by Asif Kapadia, which is, to me, is again like just unbelievable. I could argue that is as good as Searching for Sugar Man as well. And completely unrelated, but it's a tragedy. So we kind of set our film in the same sort of way. And then there was one more, which is made by a British filmmaker called Orlando von Eitzdale. It's a film called Evelyn. It's about his brother that committed suicide, and that's a family story. And this is very much a family story at the heart of it. So those three films were like sort of definitely the sort of three biggest influences, and there was a few others as well, but those are the sort of three big influences for the film.
Nice. Everyone has to draw inspirations from somewhere, so
Absolutely.
I'm glad there's, once again, film industry. I'm glad there's legendary films out there like that.
Absolutely.
Now, obviously, focal point is on Stevie, but how is it working with his nephew Daryl?
Yeah, so Daryl was amazing. Daryl's a good friend of mine, and we closely collaborated on this film. He's a co-writer and co-producer on it, and also narrator on it as well. And he kind of is the presenter star of the show, really. And it's his journey of going back and looking back on his uncle's legacy and their dynamic and their relationship, and what that meant to him, and I guess going on the search for closure. Right, I think that's a very human story. Right, going out and going through that journey on camera is a really brave thing to do. And, you know, I'm eternally grateful for him.
It's vulnerable. He can be vulnerable.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we've talked about UK D&B culture. Was that always in the back of your mind on when making the film, on making sure that it was not the forefront, but it was prominent throughout multiple scenes?
Yeah, I think initially, actually, we were making this, when we initially started properly developing this film, which was like 2014, 2015. Initially, we were making the film for like that second wave of grime, which was, so the grime 2.0 generation, which was like Skepta, when he really blew up with like That's Not Me and all of those tunes. And then Stormzy kind of came in basically off the back of that. And it was enormous at that time. And actually, when we were making the film, we were kind of making it with a view of like getting to that audience.
Yeah.
It was really more a film about MCing and MC culture, probably more to the forefront in terms of the kind of the lineage and the influence. And jungle drum and bass is obviously like the backdrop for that. But that was like our initial goal. And then it kind of like morphed over time, particularly as we started to make a bigger film that became feature in length. It was like, well, let's see how we can bring through the elements of jungle and drum and bass culture basically into it. And that's part of the reason why at certain points in the filmmaking process, it was a tussle between, am I making like the UK D&B jungle drum and bass film, or am I making a biopic?
Yeah.
And at points, we had to be like, we've got to lose some of the detail about jungle and drum and bass in order to get the biopic piece forward. And I'm glad in some ways we had to do that, because actually it made it more of a human story and more of like a focal point for a narrative piece.
Yeah.
But we did manage to somehow balance the cultural side of it within there. And it's, it's not perfect because we had to lose a lot of information.
Yeah.
But like, I think for the everyday audience, I think even for the hardcore heads, a lot of nerds watch it. Like, I'm definitely a nerd myself as well. And a lot of like the hardcore super jungle fans watch the film before, and because like, can you fact check this, because I don't want to get this wrong for like the hardcore heads, right?
Yeah, the only other movie I can remember that about the jungle thing is The Rest Is History documentary by Chris McKay. Like, and I think that just it talks about, I remember it talks about Stevie. I watched the premiere in Toronto. They did it too. And it talks about Stevie, but I think that one was just fully focused on jungle culture. Like what it was, right?
Totally.
So it's good. I think it's great that the focus went more on Stevie, and I think it's more human relatable. Yeah. It's good that we have like a documentary on the scene. That's always great, but it's good to always have a focal point too. So that's
definitely. One of the other big influences for the film was a documentary that's made in 1994, which I'd highly recommend. It's called A London Something This, and it's an incredible film made by Rachel Seeley, and it's to me is like the sort of definitive jungle documentary, and was a huge influence of the film that basically we ended up making. And actually was like, at one point me and Daryl were like, we can make a film as good as this, then we've done it. And I think we managed to achieve it. So it's an incredible film. I'd highly recommend it. Stylistically, actually, we took a lot from that film.
We'll put the link in the description when we release the video.
It's a sick film.
So obviously the movie's done. The movie's out there. What's one thing that you may have wanted to change after? Anything?
Do you know what? Nothing.
Okay.
Like,
because you put so much time into this. It's like, I'm done.
Yeah.
This is my heart and soul in the movie, and I don't want to change anything.
That's it. We were changing it. We weren't changing it drastically, but we were tweaking it right up until the very, very end, which was in November last year. So we like delivered it to Odeon, I think the week before the premiere. So it was right at the end of October. But in the final part of the online process, I was tweaking it. I was taking time out of it. But I could have equally put out the version that we were screening to people, and that was the 95% finished version we were talking about before. I could have equally put that out and been really happy with it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the final version, I remember watching it in the premiere, and I was like, wow, it's perfect.
I mean,
I was so happy with it.
That's the best.
I was so happy.
Was the premiere the November 6th day?
Yeah.
Okay,
right.
that was the actual premiere.
Yeah.
And then obviously the feedback. Then did you already have? Okay, so you premiered it. What sensation did you get watching the film or after?
It was pretty wild. It was kind of from that point, because we'd put so much. I mean, it's 12 years of work, but certainly in the last 2 months of it. So the last month of delivering the film, the last month of proper online post-production, plus the month before that was doing the Kickstarter. Those last 2 months was just kind of like super, super intense. So by the time we got to the premiere, I was kind of, I'd sat in on the final sound mix when it was very nearly perfect. I'd say it was like 99% at this time.
Wow.
But the grade and everything, I was looking at the grade and I was like, this is incredible. We're in Elstree, which is just north of London. And in this sound studio. And I was looking at it and I was like, wow, this is really incredible. I called Daryl at the end of the day. I was like, I'm not going to believe how much better we've made this film just because of the sound mix and tightening it up.
Yeah.
And we took 1.5 minutes out of the film. And it was crazy because some people from our team who'd watched the film like countless times through the edit, like, tearing it apart, literally, figuratively, were like, you've completely changed it. And I was like, no, I've just sound mix. I've taken 90 seconds out of it. No. You've completely changed it. It's completely different. I was like, no, we've just tightened it up. I think those little beats of tightening it up just made such a massive difference.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we got to the premiere, I was like, when I was watching it going, this is perfect. Like, knowing that I'd sat in the sound mix, I was like, oh my God, this is actually like my like film premiere of like a thing that me and Daryl had basically created from nothing over the course of 12 years. And I've got like the whole of the scene watching it and some absolute legends in the building. And then I've got like super close friends, family. And I'm sat in a corner. Like I specifically picked my seat so I could look out at everybody. Sat in the corner going, this is wild. It's kind of like an out-of-body experience, really, to be honest.
It's like a milestone moment. Just
proper.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
It must have been amazing. I can already feel the like feeling of like that relief, the passion that comes out during that premiere, especially with the feedback you've received thus far. So right now you're on the world tour. So for everyone listening, it's right now we have Germany, we had New York, we're in Toronto, and then we have Australia, and then Amsterdam before Australia.
Yeah.
What's been the highlight thus far? What feedback have you received from the current 2 stops?
Well, like New York was incredible because I'm a big fan of New York culture, in particular hip hop music, and I kind of grew up listening to New York music, and so that was like really phenomenal. And I've got good friends in New York, and Daryl's sister actually lives in Queens as well. She couldn't get over for the premiere, but she came for this, so that was really special. Like having her and her son there, who are family anyway, so it had a kind of family vibe to it. So it was a really incredible experience. And I guess as like a first-time filmmaker to have your film premiere in North America and New York,
right?
Yeah,
it's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
It's pretty wild. And you sort of like, you have to kind of, because I produced the film as well. I didn't just direct it. I produced it, and I kind of was very in on the nuts and bolts and the real detail, basically, on everything. I think like those moments, particularly like the UK premiere, world premiere, and then doing it in New York, when you know that you've been so hands-on with everything, you do have to sometimes take a step back from it, because as a independent, DIY filmmaker, you're so sort of focused and laser focused on just getting stuff done day by day. And I think those are the moments where you can really step back. And to be here, I think, is going to be, I'm sort of tempering my own expectations, because I know how much of a big deal it is. And I've not even been trying to like, I've not even really been reading too much people saying, but people are messaging on the Instagram going, I'm so excited. I've been waiting for like a year for this, and blah, 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 blah. And like everybody's going online, this is such a monumentous moment for like UK drama, for Canadian drum and bass history. And I'm like, no, this is not that big. This is not that big. So I think it's going to be pretty big.
We're excited for tomorrow.
I think it's going to be pretty big. So
we're excited for tomorrow to see the reception, because we know those comments are true, that people are excited.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, it's a real honor. It's a real honor, I think.
Yeah.
And you have to sort of take I think you have to sort of take those moments for what they are, but also like try and be present in them, rather than going, I've got loads of other work to do with various other bits to do with it. It's it's pretty crazy. So
yeah, it's like resonating with the fans is what we say, right?
Yeah, totally.
The fan, especially in like the different regions, especially in the Toronto region, the first time in Toronto, right?
Yeah,
Something
totally.
You're now going to fully experience like the passion that's in our community.
Yeah,
for sure.
Different culture,
yeah, for sure.
Because it's very strong here. I guess so. After this world tour, do you want to share if there's any planned streaming service or anything?
Yeah, well, the goal basically for the end of this year, first quarter next year, is to get it on a big streamer.
Okay.
And one way or another, however we do that, ideally, if anybody's watching, you're gonna see this.
Put it into this.
Put it in the list. So that's one big thing, which would be a huge thing if we get that done. And then the other thing is we've got music coming as well. And we've got a collaboration project with Gorgon City, which we're working out at the moment. They've done a track themselves. They've also done a track with Boo as well, which is a straight up tear out drum and bass track. And they've also done a UKG collab with Silver Bumper as well. That got finished the other day when I was in New York, and I heard it. Is that listen? I was like, wow, this is sick. So that's huge. And there's other music coming from other producers as well. Namely, want to big up Logan D. I don't know if you guys saw, like, when it was all going viral last year, there was this clip from the cinema, one of the cinemas in the UK, big up the Kent crew. It went viral because basically when the credits rolled, Logan D's tune, which is called Jungle Music, it's got a Stevie Hyper vocal played on it. People were like raving in the cinema, which is nuts. It's actually nuts. This video went proper viral.
It's probably going to happen tomorrow too.
And lighters, the lighter crew, the lighter crew.
Did you know that nearly 25% of adults experience hearing damage from loud noise exposure, like the music at clubs or festivals? Once it's gone, it's gone. That ringing you hear after a night out? It's a sign that your ears are crying for help. Hears provides earplugs that reduce noise levels by up to 21 decibels, enough to protect your hearing while still letting you feel the bass and enjoy the show. Get up to 30% off when you group buy with 5 friends. Click the link in the description now or scan the QR code on the screen. Don't wait till it's too late. Order today so you have it for your next event.
There we go.
It'll happen.
Hopefully, again, we can cut to that. But yeah, so we've got other music coming, and that Logan D track is a big tune, and we purposely held it back because we were planning for this to happen. Toronto, New York, Australia, Germany. We were planning for all of this to happen, and we wanted to hopefully get it out on the streamer and then do that release basically alongside it. So we've held back on stuff to keep the project timely, not just as a classic film, but wanted to keep it timely as well and relevant.
That's awesome. That's what we talked about. Like in 10 years from now, the culture will still be there, the history will still be there, and I think that's the most you can ask for in a documentary about someone as huge as Stevie, right?
Yeah, even for me, I didn't even know who he was. I'm learning so much right now. So yeah,
that's amazing, man.
Yeah.
Now, just to round out the episode and about the current scene, right? Is the UK is the jungle scene and UK jungle scene as strong as ever right now, or has it?
I think it's
taken a little step back.
I think it's sort of a question. It's sort of a rhetorical question, I guess. Is it's sort of how do you define it? And I think there is multiple. Andrew and I were talking about it earlier, and there's multiple sort of ways to sort of I guess define UK jungle and drum and bass, and subgenres basically within that, and sub scenes basically within it. Drum and bass in the UK is like an institution; it's massive, but it's not massive how it was back in the 90s. It was kind of one thing with maybe a couple of different nights, but essentially most people were playing the same sort of music. Whereas now it's it's so big that there's multiple different subgenres within the music itself. So you have jump up, liquid, tech step, neurofunk, and then jungle in itself has had a massive resurgence with Near Archives, Future Retro London, Tim Reaper, big up Tim Reaper. He put out a tune a couple of years ago on his label, which was a great tune, and yeah, that whole thing is a thing in itself. And then you have old school jungle, from back in the day, back in the day, with the people that went to those parties back in the day, as you're saying earlier, in their 40s and their 50s. And
yeah, that's the one amazing thing. I still can't wrap my head around why it's only the drum and bass scene that brings out the old head.
It's mad.
The only scene. The trance scene would be the only comparison because back in the day, and the house scene, but the house is modified so much that it's kind of
mixed.
It's
big melting pot.
What old house is not really thing. It's kind of morphed completely.
Yeah.
But trance and drum and bass, I guess, are the two pillars of attracting a lot of the older crowd. But the trance scene here doesn't come out.
Yeah.
The trance scene in UK is also struggling from what we know. But the drum and bass jungle scene, I don't know. It's just everyone comes out.
And I don't know why. I don't know why that is versus other dance musics. I guess it's maybe because we were and are so fanatical about it. Hence the reason I took 12 years of my life to make a film. But
the only thing I can think of, it goes back to the culture.
Yeah.
The culture aspect never changes. So if it's UK culture, that UK culture is still prevalent 20 years ago as it is to now. So it resonates with both generations. That's the only thing I can think of that is the reason why it's still,
Yeah, I think you're
it's
right.
still part of the identity.
Yeah.
I think that's
you're
what it
right.
comes down to. So
I think you're
the
right.
the term "rave to the grave," the jungle
Yeah.
community will rave to the grave.
And I think there's also a thing of like, the music was just amazing in that period of time, and 93 to 96, certainly within the sort of transition from jungle right through into like drum and bass, and even that early drum and bass sound, which is my era really, which is 96 to 99, 2001, was just the music in that 93 to 01 period was just unbelievably good, mixed in with this kind of cultural kind of melting pot, mixed in with how the music was kind of communicated to you, and you were kind of going from the analog era right then right up until the sort of early digital era, and the music spread really quickly actually in sort of 2001 with the likes of Drum and Bass Arena and stuff as well. So you've got like kind of, even within that very early sort of gestation of it, there's like multiple different genres and sort of sub-genres within it.
Yeah.
From that cultural
And even in my time, like I started listening to like EDM in the 2000s, right? So I've seen it morphed in my own way. The UKF days that everyone knows.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
For me, I was that YouTube UKF kid waiting for the latest upload.
Yeah, of course.
Old dubstep is still king, right?
Yeah,
so like
yeah,
for me, like the new dubstep, it's fine, but the old dubstep, the old uploads are still resonate with me. The old UKF DnB uploads were just legendary. So it just...
yeah, that was definitely like a sort of a step on from sort of Drum and Bass Arena and what they were doing. It's actually the same company, AEI, big up the AEI crew, and what they did, and kind of like how they kind of carved the music out digitally, I think is a really important thing of like, why it's sustained for such a long period of time. And both UKF and Drum and Bass Arena were incredibly supportive of what we've done and what we've been doing as well.
Amazing.
So
would you say it kind of feels like it's very similar to listening to rap music from the 80s and 90s?
Yeah, I think when me and Daryl sort of set out to make, and Daryl would sort of say this himself and speak on this, I think his initial sort of goal, he wanted to make a film that would be like the wild style of the UK, right? And I think, that was always kind of in our mind of like what type of film we're making. We're trying to make a cultural landmark of a film. And New York in the 80s and the 90s was this kind of like hub, right, of hip hop, and it was grown and born there in the same way that London was the hub for jungle and drum and bass, because it was literally born there. And I think we wanted to do a similar thing with this film. So absolutely, that parallel is absolutely correct and right,
No, because that's how I feel like, because like if you would throw an 80s rap here, all the old hits will come out too, right?
Yeah,
So,
it's true.
Yeah,
it's true. When you have those old throwbacks like the Wu-Tang Clan, like you get all different generations coming out for that, which is amazing. I guess we've talked about MCs a lot. Would you say MCs are just as important as the DJ in the drum and bass world?
I think they were definitely then. It's evolved so much now. It's so different. Of course, I would say that, because I've made the film about the MC.
Because I guess this question kind of circles back to how the North American DnB views MCs as not really part of the culture. I don't know. I don't think there's a way you can convince them, because once again, every genre morphs into what works for their region, right? So
do you know what the interesting thing is? And I think this is also part of the thing, is that I would love to see like a young kid come out who is just so next level, that blows everybody out of the water.
Yeah, that's true.
And is a pure jungle drum and bass MC, not like, because a lot of these artists now, rightly so, they're multi-genre, they do multiple different things, particularly vocalists and MCs as well. But I'd love to see a kid who's just grown up on it, like one of their parents like raised them on it and said, you're going to do just this specific thing. That is what I think it needs. I think
it could also be, we just haven't had the breakthrough where certain sounds transition over time, but we haven't had the jungle sound where it keeps the old, like the MC keeps the old part, but modifies it for the modern age.
Yeah, totally.
I just don't think we've had that breakthrough, which has been,
I agree.
I don't know, maybe it's still, maybe we have, maybe someone's listening and there's a kid waiting to go, but I think that's what it is. It's easier said than done, obviously. But I think that's all it could take, right? We
I
never
totally
know how
agree.
music changes
Totally
because it
agree.
goes through waves, right?
Yeah.
It goes through waves. So maybe jungle will be like skyrocketing based on whatever transition happens.
But it's like, if you look at Near Archives, for instance,
Yeah.
and what's so incredible about her is that she is like a DJ who also is a vocalist and will be a vocalist over the top of her own DJ sets. I saw her in New York in Knockdown Center a couple of years ago, last time I was visiting New York. And it's just amazing to see like a bunch of like New Yorkers on this real kind of like authentic sort of jungle vibe. And I think if you relate that to an MC or an artist, if there was an MC that was able to do the same thing that Near Archives could do, but as an MC, like doing that same thing, that is when I think you'd really see like
the boom.
Yeah, the sort of the next level of it. And that's not to say that there aren't sick drum and bass MCs at the moment. As I mentioned, the Mike Mania thing, the bass layers thing.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of those artists and those MCs, they're the ones that are big at the moment are of a, the OG generation or like a later generation of like 10 years ago. The big ones, certainly. There hasn't been anybody that's come through in the last X amount of years that is like super young and super skilled and talented, in my opinion.
Yeah, maybe we just have to grab some of the rap talents from there.
Yeah.
And then evolve them into jungle. Who knows, right?
Yeah, could be the next
It
thing.
could be the next big thing.
That's it.
So to close off the episode, is there any like final closing remarks for Stevie Hyper D that you wanna mention?
Well, I just want to say thank you guys for allowing me to be here, and
we appreciate you having us.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I've loved every single moment of this conversation.
Wicked. And big up the Toronto crew, big up Stranger, big up Marcus Visionary, and yeah, it's a real honor to do this. And as I say, it's kind of surreal. Like, so we spent a long time, building up to the launch of the film in the UK. And the goal and the vision was always to take it internationally, and yeah, here we are in Toronto, the North American home of jungle drum and bass.
Yes.
It's pretty big.
We are the home, guys. We are the home.
Really big. It's undeniable.
Our legacy is strong.
It's undeniable. You can't deny it.
We'll fight any other major cities on that.
You can't deny it. So it's a real
wild.
It's a real honor to do this. And yeah, say by the time this comes out, we would have probably completed most of the world tour, but certainly like watch out for the film on streaming, and watch out for the music, and we'll also be doing physical copies of the film as well on DVD and Blu-ray as well. So one of those mediums you will be able to get it. So.
Yeah,
awesome. Well, we're excited for that. We're excited for the premiere tomorrow. As
Thank
this
you.
episode will probably be out way past the premiere, but we'll do our story highlights too.
Yep.
Showcasing the
film,
the audience, the crowd, the energy. So it should be great. And any final social plugs you wanna give, Jamie?
Yeah, you can get our Instagram page and Facebook page, which is at MC Stevie Hyper D, and you can get me on Instagram, which is at Beat Culture LDN. And yeah, I think that's it. We're also on TikTok, which is Stevie Hyper D as well.
Awesome. Well, there's nothing I love more on the panel than talking about history. Doesn't matter the genre. So we appreciate you coming on and talking about the movie and why Stevie D was such a legend in our scene.
Rest in peace.
And we hope for everyone watching, you've learned so much about this. And
I did. So yeah,
big up you lot.
Yeah, got me locked in. So.
So yeah, thanks for tuning into this week's episode. If you enjoyed it and want to support us, please share it with a fellow raver, like and subscribe. We appreciate everyone who got us past the 1K barrier, which is what everyone says is the first milestone. So on to the next. We still are we're trying to reach 1,000 YouTube subs as our initial goal. So if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Just a quick shout out to a couple of our local affiliates. So Jelly IV, if you have a night of partying and you need a rave aid, Jelly IV's got you covered. You can purchase it in the links in our description. We also have affiliates with Airalo if you're traveling around the world.
So if you go to Boomtown, you might want to have that.
Yes, you might want to use that. Use our code BnB Hertz 15 for 15% off your order. It works all around the world, no matter where you go. So use it for your next festival. Use it for your next trip. If you guys need earplugs, as I said, in our scene, especially with the jungle scene,
Yep. You need
earplugs
that.
are important.
And especially if you go to Boomtown.
Especially if you go Boomtown, you go to Let It Roll.
Yeah.
Earplugs are very important. You can use our affiliate code to purchase like a group of usually 4 or 5 earplugs as a group, and use our code for a discount. We have an affiliate with Hears who does a lot of festivals in the UK and Europe. So yeah, couple
Thank
of us on the panel use it. Protect your hearing, guys, especially if you're in the scene for a long time. You want to protect your hearing.
I agree.
So yeah, we appreciate you guys tuning into this episode. We'll see you guys on the next one.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.